Everyone's talking about how badly Shedeur Sanders played in the Browns' preseason game against the Rams. But what if that performance wasn't about bad football at all? What if it was by design? In sports psychology, behavior isn't random, it's shaped. Environments create reactions, and pressure exposes what the designer wants to see. This isn't conspiracy talk, it's about how psychology, narrative control, and NFL politics can shape perception, even for a quarterback who's been primed for greatness his entire life. Maybe that bad game wasn't failure, it was data. Coaches, scouts, and even media networks use preseason moments like labs, testing not just a player's skills, but his response to chaos. What happens when protection breaks down, when timing's off, when the cameras turn cold? Shedeur Sanders isn't just any rookie. He's a brand, a storyline, and a future investment. Sometimes a dip in performance is a strategic pause in the narrative. You let the hype cool, you lower expectations, and then you explode when the real season begins. That's not a meltdown, it's pacing. And let's not forget, perception drives contracts, media coverage, and even play calling opportunities. If the league wants to see how a player handles being doubted, the easiest test is to let him fall under the microscope. It's a silent exam in resilience. Sports psychology calls it controlled adversity. Manufactured struggle to reveal character. The great ones are sculpted in those moments, not destroyed by them. A quarterback's real test isn't in the clean pocket, it's in the messy narrative surrounding him. Maybe Shedeur wasn't off his game. Maybe he was inside a deeper game, the kind where pressure is a tool, not a trap, the kind where how you recover matters more than how you stumble. Because in the NFL, every move is theater, and every actor knows when to take the fall before the rise. Heading into the 2025 season, one theory dominated scouting rooms across the NFL. Quarterbacks with 40 or more college starts are safer bets. That idea spread fast because if it was true, it made certain executives look brilliant. And that's where Dillon Gabriel enters the story. 64 college starts, the most in NCAA history. A workhorse, polished and predictable. To the analytics crowd, Gabriel was validation. To the Browns' leadership, already under fire from the Watson contract disaster, he was a chance to be right again. But here's the problem. Every measurable, accuracy, arm strength, leadership, football IQ, all favored Shedeur Sanders. And that's where this psychological chess match begins. The Browns were trapped in a dilemma of their own making. They couldn't deny Shedeur Sanders' raw talent, charisma, or the powerful media force that came with being Deion Sanders' son. But they had already tied their credibility, analytics, and reputation to Dillon Gabriel and the 40 start theory, the idea that experience equaled reliability. When Shedeur stepped onto the field and outperformed expectations in his very first preseason game, it shattered that comfortable narrative. Suddenly, the inexperienced quarterback looked sharper, calmer, and more natural than the veteran model they'd sold to fans and ownership. So what could the Browns do? They couldn't rewrite data, but they could rewrite perception. The solution was subtle. Control the next image the world would see. Watch closely. Gabriel started early with scripted plays, quick throws, and protection calls tuned to his rhythm. He looked clean and composed, exactly how the story needed him to look. Then came Shedeur Sanders, late in the game with no script, a half-empty crowd, and thin protection. Coaches know one thing about competitors. When they feel they're being measured, they press. They look for splash plays, not checkdowns. They want to prove something. That's the hero trap. A psychological trigger that causes even calm athletes to force outcomes. They knew Shedeur's wiring. Confident, aggressive, alpha. They didn't have to tell him to press. They just had to create the right conditions. The result? He held the ball, waited for deeper routes, and looked uncomfortable. The narrative became Sanders isn't ready. Mission accomplished. Then came the blitz question, one detail that turned quiet speculation into suspicion. When film junkies and analysts charted every snap of that Rams game, a strange pattern appeared. Dillon Gabriel faced basic defensive looks, predictable four-man rushes, simple zone coverage, nothing fancy. But when Shedeur Sanders stepped in, everything changed. The Rams suddenly dialed up 5, and 6-man blitzes, rotating safeties, and disguising coverages like it was a playoff game. In preseason, it's common for coaches to coordinate and test individual players. Give a rookie lineman a challenge or see how a cornerback reacts under stress. It's part of the process. But what happened to Shedeur Sanders felt different, almost calculated. The timing of the blitzes, the disguised coverages, the relentless pressure, it didn't resemble evaluation, it resembled exposure. It's as if someone inside the Browns organization quietly said, "Let's see how Sanders performs in chaos. Send pressure every other snap." That's not cheating, It's strategy wrapped in psychology. Because when you want to test a player's confidence without admitting it, you don't pull him aside for a lecture. You build the storm around him, watch his instincts unfold, and let public perception do the rest. And that's where the real game begins, the one behind the scoreboard. When you strip away the playbook and the stats, what's left is the experiment. How much can a quarterback absorb before he fractures? Coaches talk about mental toughness, but they don't measure it in calm conditions. They measure it in confusion when the pocket collapses and the crowd starts doubting. Maybe the Browns weren't just testing Sanders' arm, they were testing his identity. Does he lead when everything's falling apart? Does he still trust his reads when every read feels like a trap? That's the psychology of pressure. Expose the nerves early so you can wire them differently later. And let's be honest, the NFL thrives on storylines. A young QB under siege makes for compelling headlines, debates, and viral clips. Even bad tape has currency. Sometimes, an intersect, ugly performance buys patience. It gives coaches cover to rework his mechanics, to rebuild him on their terms. The narrative becomes, he struggled early, but look how far he's come. From a psychological angle, this could have been deliberate conditioning. Throw him into the storm now. So when it's real, the lightning doesn't scare him. It's not sabotage, it's inoculation. Stress in small doses builds resilience in large ones. And if you look closely, Sanders didn't lose his composure. He adapted. He took hits, readjusted, and kept scanning the field. That's data coaches love more than touchdowns. They're not looking for polish in August. They're looking for instinct under fire. Within 24 hours, every analyst hit the same notes. Gabriel showed command. Sanders held the ball too long. Gabriel looks NFL ready. That's what psychologists call an availability cascade, when repetition creates credibility. Once the talking points align, perception becomes reality. Suddenly, what fans saw in one controlled game became proof. Even Sanders' fans, loud, loyal, and protective, started getting gaslit. The conversation shifted from potential to patience. Here's why this entire theory fascinates sports psychologists. It's not about coincidence, it's about control. If this really was orchestrated, it represents one of the most subtle yet effective forms of behavioral design in modern sports. Imagine it. Let one quarterback operate in total comfort, protected by a playbook tailored to his strengths, a line trained to anticipate his rhythm, and a script built to highlight his composure. Then take the other quarterback and throw him into chaos. Unfamiliar reads, collapsing pockets, and unpredictable blitzes. Both players end up looking exactly like your theory predicts. The veteran appears calm, the newcomer looks raw. It's not manipulation, it's framing. And when your media allies echo the same conclusion, see, experience wins, the illusion becomes truth. No lies necessary, just well-timed validation. But calm doesn't last forever. Now it's the bye week and the cracks are showing. The fan base is frustrated. Gabriel's stats are ordinary, his confidence shaky. The same executives who built this experience narrative now face a brutal dilemma. If they bench him, they admit failure. If they don't, they risk losing the locker room and the season. Every week, the calls for Shedeur grow louder, social media turns hostile, and reporters circle for accountability. That's the dangerous beauty of psychological control. It works perfectly until real results stop cooperating. And when that happens, the story you built to protect your credibility becomes the very pressure that threatens to destroy it. So what happens now? If you're Cleveland, do you protect your ego or your season? If you're Sanders, do you trust the system or force its hand? And if you're watching, ask yourself this: are we witnessing football evaluation or behavioral management at scale? Because this isn't just about who throws the better ball, it's about who controls the story around the ball. When narratives collide, truth becomes the first casualty. Whether you believe this was intentional or coincidence, one fact remains: Shedeur Sanders was the better prospect. Everyone knew it. Every scout said it. Maybe that's the real play hidden beneath the highlight reels. The quiet influence no one talks about. Every snap, every missed throw, every camera angle becomes part of a larger narrative machine. And once that machine starts rolling, it can turn brilliance into doubt with nothing more than repetition. But the thing about true talent is that it doesn't fade. It adapts. You can shape perception for a while, but you can't fake potential forever. Eventually, the game evens out, the noise dies down, and what's real rises to the surface. When that happens, the same people who question Shedeur will call it a comeback, not realizing he was never gone, just underestimated by design. So if a talent like that looks off in a preseason designed to showcase him, you have to ask not what he did wrong, but what was designed around him. Because in the NFL, the game isn't just physical, it's psychological. And sometimes, the scoreboard you should be watching isn't on the field. This is PsychOps Sports, where we expose the game behind the game. Subscribe now, and stay tuned for the next chapter. Shedeur Unleashed, what happens when the design fails?